can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. Right now, I feel like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Wise here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. I'm going to introduce today's guest, Wes Mathews, in a second of High Level Marketing. But Wes, I always like to mention past episodes that people should check out. And since Wes has started and grown this amazing agency, I figured I'd mention John Morris talked about growing his agency to 250 people and then selling it. He's got an amazing story. And then Jonathan Jacobs of Digital Natives talks about how he helps top authors with their book launches. And I found that book launch, what he does there, it was fascinating. And check out there many, many more on InspiredInsider.com. And before I introduce Wes, this episode is brought to you by Rise 25. At Rise 25, we help businesses give to and connect to their Dream 100 relationships by helping you run your podcast. And for me, Wes, I'm always looking at the companies I admire, the people I admire, profiling them on my podcast to learn from them, and other people can learn from them. And, the number one thing in my life is relationships and just building those relationships and giving in a giving fashion. So if you haven't thought about starting a podcast and you are a business, even before, I've been doing this for over 10 years, Wes, and I've been telling people the whole 10 years, if you have a business, you'd have a podcast, period. And you guys do websites. I say, you would be if you didn't have a business and you did not have a website, that's absolutely crazy. Not only a bad website, I know you help people actually optimize their website, and we'll talk about that. But I believe that will happen with podcasts in whatever it is, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, like everyone should and will have one. But we'll see. We'll go back to this conversation, see if I'm right on that. But without further ado, if you have questions, by the way, go to rise25.com. I want to give a big shout out to Todd Taskey, who introduced today's guest. And Todd is a 20 plus year entrepreneur. He helps people develop a successful exit strategy and help them sell their business for maximum value. So check out Todd Taskey and what he's doing there. Wes Mathews is a CEO and founder of High Level Marketing. And Wes, I think you like to describe yourself as scrappy, a scrappy entrepreneur, strong leader who cares about helping businesses grow. And fun fact about Wes is, if you're not watching the video, he's obviously got an amazing beard at this point in time, but he's on the board for EO Detroit. He's got 4 boys. And so you look pretty relaxed, having 4 kids running around who let you like golfing, fishing, and hockey. So Wes, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
There's a couple of things I want to dig into. I want to talk about how you balance wife, 4 kids with business. But first of all, how'd you meet Todd?
Randomly. So through COVID, I must get maybe no shortage of 5 to 10 emails a week, people asking me about selling the company, meet this company. And I randomly got a cold email from Todd. I was sitting at my desk. I was bored. I clicked on it, and he looked like Grant Cardone a little bit. And I just got done reading Grant Cardone's book. And I said, all right, yeah, maybe I'll take a call with this guy. So I replied to the email. He replied right away. And then I had a video call with him, and I was like, I actually like this guy. He's a refreshing guy. He's more of a sales guy at heart. He wasn't like a suit, private equity. And we just had a great conversation. And I really wasn't in any opportunity or position to sell at that moment in time. And Todd just kind of serendipitously came in that moment. And it was
it's interesting.
A chance of
because you get so many people reaching out to you. What was it about that cold email that stuck out?
It was just real brass tack. Like, it wasn't fancy. It was just like, hey, I'm Todd Taskey. I don't know if you're interested. It was very basic. And most of the ones I get are very, straight to the point. Most of the ones I get are like, we are the largest hedge fund manager and private, and like, it was none of that. It was just raw. And I'm like, all right, I was bored,
That's good. I love that. So 4 kids and a wife with a budding company. And we'll talk about kind of the transition and growing from 45 people to 100 people. Talk about how you make sure and weave in family stuff and 4 kids.
Yeah. So like the pursuit of entrepreneurship, I've always been big on like, I'm never going to work 90, 100 hours a week. Like that just wasn't in my DNA, even pre-kids. Like I got to enjoy life. And so what I do now, I'm always in a constant, spot of like improving and always constant improvement. But, what I try to do is, wake up in the morning, try to get to the gym or work out. Like that hasn't been going great. I'm back on the wagon this week, so that's been good. But, 8:30 to 9 to like 5:30, like I'm kind of jamming, like I'm all in the business. And then outside of that, what I try to do is tech off. This thing right here is a blessing and a curse, right? Because anybody can get in contact with you. But I try to go tech off, focus on family until about the time they go to bed. And then, I'm trying to get to bed by 11 every night. So just, again, it's not perfect. It's just kind of what my design looks like. I try to do that as best as possible. Obviously things come up, but family's important to me. Just giving my kids attention. I'm never going to miss one of their games. I'm never going to miss an important event because there's a client issue or a meeting. Very big on that.
Yeah, no, I love hearing your strategies, and it sounds like you just have really strict boundaries around that, and you create those boundaries by maybe just shutting off anything digital after a certain point. Are there any other strategies for, entrepreneurs are like typically just want to go all the time, and so you seem very similar to that. So it's not necessarily maybe it's easier said than done. Are there any other strategies you recommend that you found that work for you, even when you have like a big deal coming up and you're like, I need to work on this for tomorrow and whatever it is? Any other things that you found help you not fall off the bandwagon?
Yeah. So there's something called EOS, the Entrepreneur Operating System, which I discovered. You mentioned I'm a part of EO Entrepreneur Organization. And that's like a framework for entrepreneurial ran companies because we're all crazy, right? I'm a visionary. I come up with a million ideas and just everything's always chaos with me. So I'm sending emails, I'm getting emails. I'm constantly like, my day used to feel good. I'm like, I did so much. But in reality, this EOS framework really helped me streamline and organize my to-dos and really helped me, stay out of the weeds and really stay focused. So again, I've also said, I'm not saving lives. We're in the web and digital marketing space. Obviously stuff happens, comes up, like servers go down, issues happen. But for the most part, I've always been, hey, it can wait till tomorrow. And I'm not going to, freak out or stress out about it.
Yeah, actually. So I have featured Gino Wickman. So people should check out that episode and Mark Winters of Rocket Fuel. So check out that episode, which is an amazing book talking about, go ahead.
Those two books changed my life. Honestly, like I read a lot of audio, or listen to a lot of audiobooks, but those actually created the framework that's allowed me to be what I feel is successful in my personal balanced life. Because there's no magic pill, right? It's just how defining success and what works for you, right? Like I got some guys that, come home at 9 and see their kids for 10 minutes and that's what they want to do. Like I'm not here to judge, but for me, that's not what I want to do. So I took the framework, aligned my company, drove the vision and the culture to that. And I think it also helped too in terms of recruiting and laying a foundation because people around me know how important that is to me. And that makes them feel really good knowing when their kid has a soccer game or something that I'm not like, you should be at the desk, like hammering projects and writing deals. They know that that's where I'm coming from and they really respect that.
Yeah. And, what I love about the Rocket Fuel is kind of laying out the visionary integrator so that the crazy, awesome visionary like you is like, oh, this is really my missing puzzle piece. And so I want to talk about how you met your partner and how you decided to partner up.
Yeah. So rewinding back to 2009. So I was always on the sales operations, like the vision drive of the company. My partner now, after we partnered, he's a technology guy. So we kind of met each other at a time where a lot of people would approach him that wanted to go into business because he's like this mastermind technology guy. And he would take on these clients or individuals that would never sell anything or nothing would ever come to fruition. And I was personally struggling with finding a constant software guy that I could count on. So we started doing a little business together. And, one day I finally said, hey, why don't we just partner, go 50-50? I handle the front of the house, you handle the back of the house, and let's just get it done and get after it. And that's what we did. And, 11 and a half years later, we just took that simple idea and kind of grew that into where it is today.
Talk about the initial service and software and offering, and then the evolution? Because I'm sure what you started off doing is not completely what you do now. What was initially, and then how did it evolve?
So what was attractive to me about my partner at the time, John Bowerman, is he built his own content management system that websites. So anytime a website would be built, it would be off this proprietary platform. And I love the concept because when customers are on our platform, they can't just jump platforms. There's a lot of work that gets done, and then we can like build our own kind of culture around that. So, we started off early on like little simple A, B, and C packages, for very little money. And you were like the first couple of years, we were just trying to figure this out. So what that's evolved to today is, millions of dollars, millions of hours investing to offer this really great high level dashboard that a customer can log in the back end, not even log in, click a button to see how many leads they're getting, what their ROI is, like literally as much data as they can digest into a really simple format. And they can manage and see the success of their online digital marketing campaign right in this really attractive dashboard. So I think that, anytime anybody's spending any money in marketing, you want to know what am I getting back for my dollars? And our dashboard allows customers to see that quickly, real time, real data, no bullshit behind it. And, they can go in and manage their website and pretty much manage their whole marketing initiative right from the back, or we can do it for them. So it's really intuitive. And it's come a long way. I mean, I look back at some of our notes from 10 years ago, and it's just it's good to reflect back from where you came from, right?
Yeah. When you pick up your head and I always picture someone swimming. If you just swim forward and you look back like, oh, I went further than I thought I did. And so what type of clients were you serving then? And then what type of clients are ideal now?
Yeah, back then it was anybody who would listen and pay us money. But typically we would stay with the small business entrepreneurial brand. I mean, that's really evolved into just, non-Fortune 500. As long as a customer has an entrepreneurial spirit, we're a good partner. So B2C is typically where we like to live because we can produce a tremendous amount of leads and opportunities for customers. So roofer, plumber, electrician, like the skilled trade guys, real estate, that's our sweet spot. So, yep, as long as there's an entrepreneurial spirit, we tend to work well with any type of customer.
So, Wes, someone like NY Martial Arts Academy comes to you. They go, I need your help. What do you do for them?
So in most cases,
because you do more than just a website, you do more than just a website and a dashboard.
Yeah, for sure. So, to me, still true to today. I mean, everybody's going to go to your website and check you out, right? So want to make sure the website is an accurate reflection of who you are and who you're trying to portray yourself out there in the world. But then also, the magic question to everybody is like, how many leads are you getting from your website today? And most of the time it's like none, or the website's not doing anything. I'm not investing in it, or I tried to invest in it and it never worked.
It's like a brochure
like
for
New
people.
York martial arts.
Sort of.
Yeah, it's like, look, everybody's different. Like we might do business with 10 to 100 different karate studios, but we spend the time to get to know the customer. Like, what are you trying to accomplish? Like wave a magic wand, define success. If we're able to drive leads, what does that look like? What are people doing? What are they buying? We start with the end in mind, like how many leads can you handle? What's the process? And then we design out how do we get there? And then we execute and deliver. And we do that by way of organic optimization, in some cases, paid search media. But, most of the, again, early on, a lot of people didn't have a website or a great website or any type of organic strategy because it was 11 and a half years ago. Today, everybody has it, but it's just, we don't pull on the top page for our main service. Our website was built by our sister's cousin's brother's friend's daughter. Like we now understand the relevancy of getting into an agency. And again, most people will, find our work. They'll find a website that we've done and see it's ranked all over the top pages of Google and there's all these leads. They'll find us at the bottom. They'll say, hey, you did X, Y, Z. Can you do that to us? So we just try to help explain the importance and, kind of help soothe, the pain, because most people have worked with a company, some marketing company, where they weren't happy or
they didn't
the
deliver.
Expectation wasn't met based on what they were. Correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we speak in ROI. You invest this is the outcome that we're going to produce.
I love the speak of ROI. That's the key. So NY Martial Arts Academy, they're like, this all sounds great. we have a website humming, we have some organic search humming, we have some possible paid search humming. They can look at things in their dashboard. What does a dashboard look like if you were to describe it? What do they see in there?
Yeah, we made it really simple, like almost like a mile per hour gauge. Like this is good, this is not so good, this is bad, based on what our expectations and what we're setting. So it really just gives them raw data of, here's the amount of leads you got, here's how many calls you received, that kind of, it's really, really simple. And we took, there's great companies out there that give really high level dashboards with millions of pieces of data, right? Like Google Analytics is a great tool, but half the time people log into it and they have no idea what they're looking at. We take like the top 3 to 5 things out of that in our own proprietary systems and give a high level overview to the customer. So they know how many leads are coming in, how many phone calls, that kind of thing, and what keywords are being clicked on the most.
I mean, sometimes creating those simple dashboards are harder though, because you're pulling everything in to give you one kind of thing as opposed to if there's 10 different things. So I would argue a little bit that probably what you created is more difficult than just creating a bunch of piecemeal metrics that someone can't make a decision off of, I imagine.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, regardless if we're doing organic optimization, if we're driving leads, the conversations I try to have is at the end of the day, like, do you really care where it comes from? Like, you just want to pay a fee and get the result. So let us do the work and make it very simple for you to identify, where am I at? Do I feel comfortable with what I'm paying? So we have account managers, customer service managers who support all of our customers ongoing that are there to help go through the data with the customer. So, the customer's never out there on an island. Every project we sell, every customer we partner with, they have a dedicated resource to help them through that journey.
Yeah, that's key. I love the companies I work with that I have some kind of account manager or someone that can help me along. Do you recommend them scheduling an ongoing call with the client, or do you just let's talk about year 1, 2, 3, 4 and beyond, or do you recommend just touch base with them every so often? What is your recommendation if there's an agency out there, they have account managers? What have you found to be a good sweet spot?
Every month, a touch point, because again, our model is reoccurring revenue, customers paying us every month. I'm not going to go 90 days without having a conversation with the customer to let them know how we're working for them, how we're showing up, the work that we're doing. If that's not possible, I would say at least every 90 days. You can do a lot through automation and email, but again, having the conversation, talking about even, one thing that I think we missed early on as a company that if I could go back and change was, we were always very protective of the ball. So like customer buys this package. We spent so much time really trying to protect and fight for that. And we lost a lot of opportunity to talk about the upsell or like what's next. And I kind of learned that a few years after on, all the calls don't have to be about this is what you're paying for and this is what you're getting. It's what the hell's going on in the world? Like, what are our other customers doing? Like, what is that other idea that we can give? So we just said, hey, if we can identify and have that single point of contact to build that relationship, some people are like, what are you calling me for? Or I thought we're doing our 90-day review. So we just let the CSM manager kind of set that cadence to say, hey, like we want to have at least one deep, meaningful conversation every 90 days to go through the data to make sure we're on the same page. And I think with our retention rate being above 88%, I think that's it's working pretty well.
Yeah, I love that, Wes. Actually, it's like it's not just a call; it's almost like an insight call because you can see. You have a different perspective. You see across many clients what's working, not just what that one industry or person is doing. So I love that. What else? What other discoveries have you made throughout? Like that was one, like, oh, we should be talking about other stuff, insights, what other products and services we have. What else did you discover that you added in to the system?
I think, from where we started to where we're at today, it's just, keeping your ear to the street and really asking questions like, what is the customer going through? I think COVID really gave us a good opportunity to have, even deeper, meaningful conversations. Because I think that where we can come in as value add, it's, we're offering web, we're offering SEO services. But where I think we started to like really level up is then understanding the customer's like sales journey. Because my old take on the business was my job is to lead the horse to water, not make them drink. Like we're there to drive leads. But what I learned was, we might drive a ton of leads, but if the customer's not closing those leads, they won't pay us. Or they say, we're not getting a good response, yet we didn't listen to their calls. We didn't coach or educate them. So we started to put call tracking numbers, started walking them through and listening to their calls and giving them insight and feedback to say, well, no shit, this is why you're not getting any business, because nobody answered the phone. And
Right.
just little things.
Yeah.
Think businesses have buttoned up, they don't. So I think us going the extra mile and saying, like, let's walk this through to help you close more, which ultimately benefited us. And at a time early on, we just didn't realize, we're like, no, we're websites, we're SEO, we're not going to get involved with that. And I wish I would have done that early on.
Yeah, that makes sense, because people are like, well, we aren't getting results. And you're thinking, we just drove you 100 leads this month. How are you not getting results?
Right.
What are some of the mistakes you've seen companies make in those sales conversations as you're listening in? I mean, one obvious one is
phone's going to the owner,
not answering the phone is one obvious one, right? But beyond that,
like their follow-up process, like I think when a lead comes in, like you got to get back to them right away. I mean, I heard calls, I sat in a couple, and there's a tree service company, and the guy's like literally one shoulder, like chainsawing a tree down. Like, it's just not going to work. I think it's having that system and process set up. Because again, like I'm 39. The internet pretty much started when I came out of high school in terms of popularity. Like if you're a tree service company and somebody contacts you, you have like 5 minutes to call them back, or they're going to go to the next guy and they're going to be booked and you're not going to schedule that appointment. So you've got to be ready. You've got to have a process for that. And if you're the owner operator, like there's call answering services, and it's just having those deeper conversations with the customer to get them to think differently. So that's really what I tell everybody. It's like, if you can get the customer to think differently and give them new ideas on how to create efficiencies around their business. Again, I mean, I'm sure there's customers that just pay us, maybe not so much for the SEO services, but just because we're like a really good consultant and we have a lot of good ideas and we're like a really good partner for them.
Totally. Just that added value. And that's what differentiates companies from all the other companies, because they go that extra mile, they map everything out. Talk about General Filter for a second and what happened there.
So that was a client early on. So my partner and I, we spent a lot of time doing like small deals in the company, like a couple $100 a month, and we had a great process. And I think they hit our lead form, and I had the meeting with them, and they wanted a big project. So like at the time, I was super anxious. My partner threw on our nicest shirt, and we're ready to go into this meeting and really wow them. Like we didn't have any big customers in our portfolio. So I thought the meeting went great. It was like with their board. So everybody's really, stiff in the room, and I have a conversation. It's like us against 5 companies, and we do our thing. And my partner and I are ping ponging, probably fumbling all over. And I think we had another follow-up meeting to that. And I see my partner one day, and he's like, I got some bad news. I go, yeah, what's that? He goes, General Filter's called, and they decided to go with the other guys. I'm like, no way. I'm like, the lady's name, they're still a great client of ours. Her name is Paige. I'm like, Paige loved me. These guys love me. Like, I don't accept that. I do not accept that. I said, I'm calling her right now. And my partner's like, no, they said no. I'm like, no, like I'm calling them. So I pick up the phone and I call her, and I'm like, Paige, like what's going on? Like, I can't believe, like, tell me what I did wrong. Like it hurt, and it was this close. It was a huge deal for us, like huge, like life-changing deal. She goes, Wes, I really liked you guys, but the one thing that the partners were stuck on is, there was an invoicing system in your technology that you guys don't have, that the other company has. And that's why we went with them. Everything else we love. And I said, Paige, I'm really sorry that I didn't highlight our invoicing system to you. I guess I missed that in the meeting. We absolutely have an invoicing system, and I'd love to share it with you because I'd love you to reconsider, because this is going to be a great partnership. She goes, oh my God, Wes, like I didn't know you had an invoicing system. And if you guys have the invoicing system and can come out and show us, we'll absolutely do business with you. I said, perfect. Friday, 3:00, we're going to come out there. I hang up the phone. I call my partner. I said, hey, John, what are you doing? He goes, like having dinner with my family. What? I go, you think you can get an invoicing system built in 48 hours? And he's like, yep, let's do it. So we did it, built it, delivered it on Friday, and closed them. And, I love that story, and I love reflecting on it, because that was how scrappy we were. And as entrepreneurs, like, you can't take no for an answer. And, we went after it. And I think that was the catalyst of like our partnership and how we just sort of rolled forward into the future. I was going to
say, Wes, it's a good thing you have a technical co-founder in that situation.
I would have been screwed, because I would have been completely screwed. But it was nice because like we had that much confidence in each other, and it was a big win. And at the time, we're doing deals for a couple thousand a year. This was like a $20,000-$30,000 deal. Like at the time, it was like, this is big, So it was great lesson.
I love that. Fast forward to larger real estate company, and what do you do there?
So ironically, I was pulled into a meeting, and somebody's like, hey, can you go to this meeting? It's a really large opportunity. I'm like, yeah, for sure. And, it was a referral from an existing employee, and we go there, and, the conversation's going okay. It's not great. So the individual I was with, he and the individual are across the table going back and forth, and she's kind of grinding us. And it's just a typical sales meeting. Like, what are you going to do for us? And I just don't sell that way. I'm like, how do we partner? Long story short. So anyway,
it's a collaborative effort, a collaboration.
For sure. So there's a young gal that's kind of, she was listening the whole time, and she was really nervous. I could tell. So as they're kind of getting in the weeds and like arguing and doing whatever, I kind of turned to her. I'm like, oh, so, just having a conversation, right? I'm nice to everybody. Like, I'm just genuinely curious and having conversations. I can't tell you what we talked about, but I remember like she was an intern, and I'm just like, oh yeah, like talking about digital marketing or whatever we were talking about. Okay. So fast forward 3 weeks or what have you. And my partner goes, hey, do you remember that meeting you were at? Like we closed this big deal, huge deal. He goes, do you remember that meeting you were at? And I go, yeah. He goes, do you remember talking to that girl? And I'm like, oh shit. Like, did I say something? Like, I don't know what's have to come out of my mouth. Like, I started questioning everything. He goes, that was the CEO's daughter. And she told her dad after that meeting that you were the only person out of all the 5 companies that came in there that acknowledged her, talked to her, and you actually genuinely gave a shit. And there was 5 other companies that came in there, and they ended up choosing us to do business with them. And I think that was a good testament, because that's just who we are, right? And what we do. And that was a good one that felt pretty good, because it was authentic, and that's just how I am and how we operate as an organization. And they've been a great partner ever since, and we've done a lot for them, and they've done a lot for us. So yeah, that was really great.
I love that. I love that story. I love the story and I love your approach of collaboration and really relationships first, and how you can help, no matter, even if that's not what you do. It's like, oh, we'll, understand your whole sales journey and understand what you're doing on the calls, just because that will help you and that will help us do a better job. It will help them ultimately, even though maybe you're not technically on the hook for it with whatever contract you have in place with them. So I love that.
Yeah. And for me, it's, even if we can't help you, what oftentimes what happens, like, I want to tell you that right away, but I also need the context of what you need if you want me to help you find a solution for you. So half the time, like, I want to disqualify somebody as fast as I want to qualify them, to say, hey, I might know somebody, and we're very transparent with what we do, and like, hey, we're eager to help and we want to help, but at the same time, we know what we're good at, and we pass on what we're not good at, right? And that's a big thing probably too early on. Like, we used to take on anything and everything. Now today, fast forward 11 and a half years, we've gotten smarter that, just because there's big numbers tied to it doesn't mean it's the best, the best opportunity, just because there's a lot of zeros to it. So we're very particular. We're very conscious of who we do business with. And that's a great spot to be in as a business.
Wes, there's 2 transition points I'd love for you to chat about, which is one, when you transition from 45 people to 100, what was the kind of inception of that? What happened there that created that? And then how was that transition of more than doubling staff?
So still going through it right now.
It's fresh.
Yeah. So the catalyst there is, COVID happened. my goal and vision for high level marketing from the day I started was I had this mental model of being $100 million valuation company. And, we've had great success with HLM up until a point, but, I kind of had some self-reflecting moments and asking myself, like, change or change, like you can't do the same thing and expect a different result. And we went through some great growth as an organization. Year over year, we're growing, not growing quite to the speed I wanted to. So at the end of 2020, we did about $6.5 million of actual revenue. That's not like third-party costs or Google costs. And I kind of had to look in the mirror and say, like, how do we really grow and scale? Because something's just not right. And Todd Taskey calls me out of the blue. Again, selling has always been in the back of my mind. I knew it would happen at some point. Just met Todd Taskey and he goes, hey, because he's asked me like, hey, do you want to sell your company? And I gave him this crazy number and said, I'll sell it to you for this. Don't even contact me, right? Because I'm not in the headspace to sell. Well, I had my strategic meeting at the last quarter of last year, and a lot of things we identified as a group that I knew we needed to go in and fix was going to cost probably about $1.5 million in revenue. And we got to hire some key people. And to be honest with you, I'm just like, I'm looking uphill at this battle of like, do I have it in me? Like, great lifestyle business. We spit off a lot of cash. Like, it's a great business, but I'm like, comfortable is not where I flourish. Like, I need to be uncomfortable in chaos. I know it sounds crazy, but like when things are comfortable, I start to look left and right because I'm scared. Like, I just don't operate well. So Todd calls me and says, I don't have an agenda. He had an agenda. He just didn't tell me he had an agenda. He goes, there's this guy in Alabama. You got to meet him. Like, I don't care what happens. Just have a conversation with them. So we hook up in about a week and a half, do a Zoom call. It's nice to talk to other agency owners that have about the same amount of employees and revenue and, what have you. Because look, it's lonely, right? Like, it's lonely being the CEO and an entrepreneur of a company. Like, everybody shakes their head yes. I mean, it's a different thing, right? Like, so having a conversation with him, like the top 3 things that were eating me inside, he had solutions for that they've been through and they solved the problem 2 years ago. And some of the challenges that they had is they have a great CEO and a great COO, and they have a phenomenal team. What they didn't have is they didn't have a Wes, which is a chief revenue officer guy really driving sales, and they didn't have a chief technology officer. So here we are, Wes and John, CEO, who has, stripped me down to my bones. I'm a sales guy. Like, I'm a relationship guy. I won the title of CEO because nobody around me was going to take it. And as an entrepreneur, that just happened, right? And, I kind of had to do some soul searching to say, what's next? Like, I'm 39. I have this goal and this vision. We're coming out of COVID. So felt at a time in the company that if I didn't make drastic change, we were going to start to decline. Because resource sharing, I mean, there's just a lot of things where I knew the foundation was going to start to crack and how was I going to patch it? And so this opportunity came up and I started having conversations. So now the conversation turned into more around, I could actually partner with these guys and also now have a stake of a new company, we could take this conversation in so many different directions, but for me, I always start with the end in mind. And, one of my goals was to be 100% debt-free personally, no fiduciary responsibility left in the business at some point. I just didn't know when that was going to happen. So I felt that the ultimate goal was I wanted to protect the team. So my team had to stay intact. I still want to add contributing and be a high-level value for the organization. And this transformation would allow me to sit in my sweet spot and not be in the weeds and just do stuff that I'm not, just that I like, nor am I probably good at. You mentioned visionary and integrator. Like, I'm not an integrator. I'm a wannabe integrator. I don't want to be an integrator. So everything just felt right. And so what they were lacking, we filled the void and vice versa. And we just kicked off that conversation. And in about 4 months, we got the deal done end of February. And, we are now rolled up into one company. The name of that company is Bell Media out of Alabama. And we are assuming, and we took on and maintained the name and just went through a rebrand of high level marketing. So that was kind of cool, retaining our name and now growing under this umbrella, and cultures aligned and products aligned. We took all of our products, mashed them together, And so collectively we have about 100 employees, over 1,500 clients. We're going to do $18 million of revenue this year. Again, it's just the challenges now are different. It's a bigger organization going from 45 to 100. Everybody in Michigan and old HLM is still digital. Everybody's dialing into Zoom. We now have two different offices in Alabama, one in Nashville, satellite office in Houston. So it's just the meeting tempo, the cadence. And the great thing about these guys is they really respected my passion for EOS. And we've adopted the EOS platform into the new organization. We've been operating from it. So that's been fantastic because I vowed to myself, I will never do anything in life, business-wise, that isn't EOS related because of how it just, as an entrepreneur, it's a fix, man. It's a prescription drug for crazy entrepreneurs. It works.
We'll have to send that to Gino Wickman, Wes, and have him hear that. Did you hire an EOS implementer when you decided to implement it, or did you just go at it yourself?
Yeah. So early on, we hired an implementer, and we did the 90-day session. Like every EOS implementer, I don't know if they still do this. They do like the first 90 session thing. Well, we went through that twice, and my beef was they weren't intimate with the business, and they wouldn't weigh in on problem solving. And I didn't like that. I didn't need somebody there to kind of like babysit. I needed somebody to help us orchestrate. So I actually took and asked my top project manager at the time, who's my first hire, who's still with us today. I said, hey, I'm sick of client work. She's getting burnt out. She was on for like 6-7 years. I said, what if I pluck you out of that? Read this book and implement this in the company and take a year to do it. And I won't bug you. She's like, okay. So we got the whole company.
You like that I won't bug you part, Wes, right?
Yeah.
You're sold.
Yep. So, I kind of use her as the implementer until we got the whole company bought in, because it was a, 12 to 24 month kind of culture buy-in. And it just sort of evolved, and how our meetings evolved, and the vision and the 3-year, like we've never hired an EOS because, I made my leadership read the books. I've been around it for so long and everybody's so comfortable with it. So I think now as we transition to larger at some point, once we get through some of these integrations, I'm thinking about bringing in a high level, maybe even Gino or somebody to come in and give us a refresher or give us some new ideas.
What did the transition look like for you now? And what is your new role?
So my new role by title is Chief Revenue Officer. So the transition's been a little difficult in terms of, you go from being end all be all, right, to now there's many other kids in the sandbox you got to play with. And, so it's been different. It's been a challenge, but, right now, we all talked openly about, for me, I have the hardest transition because the CEO there is staying CEO, the COO staying COO, and my partner staying CTO. I have the biggest transition of saying, hey, I was the CEO and I'm moving over. But I think what's happening is I'm really babysitting, helping sales team transition. Like today, we're moving into a new Salesforce instance, so we're changing little processes. I'm reaching out to the old team, participating in all the leadership meetings. So I will say personally for me right now, it's a little weird, but I also feel like it's new. I'm just trying to meet everybody. And then I'm starting to scope out like, what am I going to do when I grow up and how am I going to add value? And I know, and I can feel where that value is going to be. It's kind of right on track, but it's just going to take a little bit of time to kind of get my bearings and just feel okay with what happened.
It seems like, Wes, though, you're going to be doing what you ultimately love to do more of the time.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, I'm a relationship guy. I'm a, ask Wes to do it, right? I remember as a kid, like, we may or may not had people buy us beer at a certain age, right? But somebody had to go to that person and say, hey, will you buy us? Like, I was that guy. Like, I have no fear. And I think that, the passion, the experience, just the relationship side of it and understanding business and how entrepreneurs think, I think that's where I can bridge the gap and solidify some really large relationships. And I think that, again, I'm so accustomed to being heads down and making sure the team's good. So, right now it's just that a little bit difficult to like, it's okay. like we have people who are taking care of that and they're doing a really phenomenal job at it. So yeah, it's given me a lot of more opportunity to do podcasts like this. I had another one earlier. I had a really great opportunity with another agency out of Arizona to talk about a potential larger thing that we're working on. So like it feels liberating, you know. It's just it's gonna take a minute to get used to.
So I'm curious, before we hit record, you said you took a little untraditional route. What did you want to do when you grew up, when you were younger?
Yeah, I still haven't figured that out. You know, I think that's been the question. You know, I when I was 20, I worked for a bank and I wrote loans and I was doing mortgages. And I remember at the time sitting here, like, I'm in my 20s and you know, a mortgage I felt at the time was the biggest financial decision for somebody. And here I am, just young, no real experience, right? And I'm doing somebody's mortgage. Like, who's going to take me serious? Like, I just don't want to do this. And I remember tech and like starting to get involved with web. So like leading up to that though, the unconventional route, like school wasn't my thing. Like I just basically skated through high school. You know, it took me several years to get through community college for my 2-year degree. I think it was like 6 years. It just wasn't my thing. And I just knew deep down that at some level I was going to do my own thing. I didn't know what it was. I remember early on, I started dishwashing when I was 13. And how I got a job is I whipped out the yellow pages and I opened it up and I called the first restaurant I saw, cold call, and I got the job. I was a dishwasher. And I remember my mom telling me, why do you want to work right now? You're going to have the rest of your life to work. And I was like, I'm not going to work the rest of my life. Like, that's the difference. Like, I'm not, you know, my dad kind of worked till he was in his late 60s and 44 years at a company. That's phenomenal. But I always had this different view of the world on, you know, if everybody's going this way, I'm sort of like, I'm going to go that way. And, you know, there was no like burning passion, but what ended up happening, what I felt was, you know, I love small businesses. I love meeting people and I love adding, like, it was interesting to me at the time to add value in tech or web, because that's like the unknown territory. So I was kind of like that even keel, great resource. And then even now, as I have conversations and as those evolve, like I love meeting just entrepreneurs and understanding their passion and, you know, helping them out. You know, that's kind of where things ended up.
Wes, I have one last question. And first of all, thank you. Thanks for sharing your lessons learned, some of the challenges, discoveries along the way. It's been great. And before I ask it, I'm gonna ask you any mentors. And it could be distant mentors, it could be actual mentors, like you mentioned the Gino Wickman. So it could be mentors meaning books or people. But before we go into that, I want to point people towards highlevelmarketing.com. What other places online should we point people towards to find out more about you and maybe the branded, you know, the rebranded company? Where else should we point people towards?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, you can find me on LinkedIn, but most of the stuff is out there on highlevelmarketing.com. Okay. You know, I've done a poor job of, you know, pushing content and doing things I should have started years ago. And that's something I'm going to start doing now. But, you know, the highlevelmarketing.com has quite a bit of information. You asked about mentors, like had a lot of mentors along the way. One by the name of Josh Linkner. You know, I've
interviewed Josh. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, Josh actually has done a lot for me personally on the business side. He introduced me to EO. So I joined EO Entrepreneur Organization. You know, that was a game changer for me. You know, as soon as my company did a little over $1 million in revenue, I was able to qualify to get in. And, you know, that was one of the best decisions I've ever made, to be around a group of like-minded entrepreneurs that are, you know, getting after it like yourself, to have that safe group that you can ask questions and learn from experience. You know, I highly encourage and push anybody I can towards that organization. And I've been on the board ever since because I'm so passionate, and, you know, I'll recommend things I'm passionate about. So
any other people within the EO ecosystem that you want to give a shout out to? Josh, I mean, founded, if people don't know, they could check out the interview. He started ePrize and it's just grown tremendously, like a staple in the try. I have friends who still work there. Wes, shout out to Lindsay Madden.
Many iterations of name. I think they're Hello World now.
Okay, Hello World, yeah.
Yeah, so Josh exited from that company and now is a, very talented speaker, just launched a new book, big little breakthroughs. Yeah, I mean, I think EO as a whole, I can't really say one or two people. I mean, it's really been a combination of just, I think as an entrepreneur, as a human being, you pick up little things along the way. And, my mom used to say, hey, be careful who you hang out with. You're going to turn into them. And I'm really glad I hang out with people in EO because those are people who I want to, be more like. So that's been a really big contributing factor to the success of, me personally, for my family and the business.
Wes, I'm the first one to thank you. Everyone check out highlevelmarketing.com. Check out more episodes of inspiredinsider.com. And thanks everyone for listening.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like $100 grand.